In a sterile laboratory in Singapore, scientists are growing a chicken breast without the chicken. No feathers. No beak, no life. Just pure meat multiplying in a steel bioreactor. This isn't science fiction. It's happening today. By 2050, we'll need to feed 10 billion people. Our current food system can't handle it. Traditional livestock farming uses 70% of agricultural land and produces 18% of global greenhouse gases. We're running out of space, water, and time. Lab-grown meat might be our only way out. Picture a small piece of muscle tissue, smaller than a rice grain, taken from a living animal through a painless biopsy. This tissue contains stem cells, the body's master builders. These cells can become any type of tissue they're programmed to create. Scientists place these stem cells into a nutrient-rich soup called a growth medium. Think of it as cellular baby food, packed with proteins, vitamins, and growth factors that cells crave. The magic happens inside a bioreactor, a sophisticated steel tank that mimics the inside of an animal's body. The temperature stays at exactly 37 degrees Celsius. The environment remains sterile, free from bacteria and contamination. Oxygen flows continuously, just like blood would deliver to living muscle. The cells begin dividing. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4. 4 becomes millions. Within weeks, these millions of cells organize themselves into muscle fibers. They don't know they're not inside an animal. They follow their biological programming, creating the same proteins and fats found in conventional meat. Scientists can guide this process, adjusting the fat content, texture, and even flavor by controlling the nutrients fed to the cells. Some companies grow their meat on edible scaffolds made from plant proteins. Imagine microscopic jungle gyms that give the growing muscle something to grab onto, creating the fibrous texture we expect from meat. Other companies skip the scaffold entirely, creating ground meat products that don't need complex structure. The process requires no antibiotics, no hormones, no pesticides. The cells grow in a controlled environment where contamination is nearly impossible. No salmonella. No E. coli. No mad cow disease. The meat that emerges is genetically identical to conventional meat but potentially safer and more consistent. But here's where things get complicated. Lab-grown meat promises to eliminate animal suffering, but the growth medium often contains fetal bovine serum, extracted from unborn calves. Companies are racing to develop plant-based alternatives, but many current products still rely on animal-derived ingredients. Are we really saving animals if we still need them to make the food? The environmental benefits aren't guaranteed either. These bioreactors require massive amounts of energy to maintain sterile conditions and precise temperatures. If that energy comes from fossil fuels, lab-grown meat might create more emissions than traditional farming. The infrastructure needed to scale this technology globally would require enormous resources and investment. Then there's the question of naturalness. Humans have been eating animals for millions of years. Our bodies evolved to process meat from living creatures. Will lab-grown alternatives provide the same nutritional benefits? Some argue that highly processed cellular agriculture is just another form of ultra-processed food, disconnected from natural food systems. The economic disruption could be devastating. Millions of farmers, ranchers, and agricultural workers depend on livestock for their livelihoods. Entire rural communities are built around animal agriculture. If lab-grown meat replaces traditional farming, what happens to these people and places? Will we trade one problem for another? Look 20 years into the future. Cellular agriculture has solved its energy and cost problems. Bioreactor farms sit in the basements of major cities, producing fresh meat within miles of consumers. Transportation costs plummet. Food security improves as production becomes independent of weather, disease, and land availability. Restaurants offer designer meats impossible to create through traditional breeding. Wagyu beef with the nutritional profile of salmon. Chicken enhanced with omega-3 fatty acids. Exotic meats from endangered species, grown without harming a single animal. The boundary between natural and artificial food dissolves completely. Traditional farms transform into carbon sequestration sites and biodiversity reserves. Vast grasslands once used for cattle grazing become forests again, absorbing atmospheric carbon. Ocean dead zones caused by agricultural runoff begin to recover. The environmental healing happens faster than anyone expected. But society splits into two camps. The cellular carnivores who embrace lab-grown meat as ethical and sustainable. The traditional food advocates who view it as unnatural and disconnected from the earth. Food becomes a cultural battleground, dividing families and communities along technological lines. Developing countries leapfrog traditional agriculture entirely, building cellular farms instead of expanding livestock operations. They avoid the environmental mistakes of industrialized nations while meeting their population's protein needs. Global food inequality begins to shrink as meat production becomes location independent. The technology doesn't stop at meat. Scientists grow leather without cows, milk without dairy farms, and eggs without chickens. The entire animal agriculture industry transforms or disappears. Rural landscapes change forever. The relationship between humans and animals evolves in ways we can barely imagine. This transformation won't happen overnight. Lab-grown meat still costs more than conventional meat. Consumer acceptance remains limited. Regulatory frameworks are incomplete. But the trajectory is clear. We're moving toward a world where growing food in labs becomes as normal as growing it on farms. The question isn't whether lab-grown meat will succeed. The question is how quickly we can solve its remaining challenges and whether we're prepared for the world it will create. Our food system is about to change more in the next decade than it has in the last century. Subscribe to VoidViz to decode tomorrow's tech.